Welcome to today's talk session. My name is Deidre Moss, and I'm the host of Can We Talk? I'm an educator, motivator, and a talk connoisseur. In our session today, we will focus and talk about community and civic engagement, which is an important aspect of our society. And so today, we welcome back Shaquanda Roll and Clyde Cooper to help us dissect this topic. At this time, I will turn the virtual mic over to our guests so that they can briefly introduce themselves. We'll start with Ms. Roll, and then we'll come to you, Mr. Cooper.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shaquanda Roll. I'm an educator, social worker, and a humanitarian. And thank you, Ms. Moss, for having me back on.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Miss Roll. I don't know why I call you that. Mr. Cooper, we come to you.
All right, everyone. Good evening. Hi, my name is Clyde Cooper. I'm an auto technician, CEO of Operation 300, No Limit Auto Care.
Thank you. Thank you for those introductions. So before we begin, if you would have just joined us, like and share this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel using the links that are available on our page if you like our content. We want to continue to talk about these important issues. So with that, let us get into our talk today. So we want to kick off where we would have left off. And so I know we talked about it briefly, but I want us to, again, talk about our view of the community. So both of you, what is your view of community? And in your view, why is it so important to build society at the community level? So I'll come to you, Ms. Roll, and then I'll jump to you, Mr. Cooper.
Okay. Like I said before, bridging the gap. And it is important to build on the community level because of, having the individuals in that community involved and being a part and letting them know that they're a part. The most successful people and companies did not start on their own. For example, take our Prime Minister or Steve Jobs, they all needed someone to help, and they had that support or small community backing them to get them where they are. I know sometimes, we can get this thought that we don't need anyone, but in reality, we do. In order to make it in life, we will always need someone. But we have to, change that mindset and focus on the building and to be the change you want to see in your community and watch the lives you impact with you changing positively and making it a positive change in that community.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Cooper, we come to you. Why is it so important to build our society at the community level?
Yes, like Shaquanda said, basically unity is strength, and everybody needs guidance. We all need guidance at some point. We just, we need that.
Okay, Mr. Cooper, I'm going to come back to you. I know you probably have some audio. So we'll come back to you, Mr. Cooper. Thank you so much. So, Ms. Roll, I want to jump to you as it pertains to, focusing on young individuals within our community. I wanted to ask you, why is it so important for us to focus on the younger members of our society?
Like I said in the prior session, it is important where, training.
I right, Mr. Cooper, I'm gonna come back to you, Mr. Cooper.
You know,
Okay, you could go ahead, Ms. Rose.
You know, like going back to training up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they won't depart. It is important to start with young individuals, because I know, as for me, just watching my aunts and my uncles, my mom, them be business owners, and just we say now hustlers. They made it happen, and just watching them make it happen taught me how to make it happen. The sometimes we can get so distracted within ourselves and not realizing that there are young individuals that's looking up to us. So it is important as adults to make sure they live a life that's pleasing, where our young children are also watching them. I try to live that life for my children, and I know for my daughters, they will mimic some things that I do, and I have to be mindful of, okay, is that the way I would like for them to be when they're in public? Or I try to live a life that's positive in front of my children along with my clients, because I work with young children as well. And just to see their goals, like when you ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? And a lot of them do not have a desire because of what they're just seeing in their homes. They feel like there's nothing else out there but to live on food stamps or government assistance. But there's so much out there for our young individuals. And I think it's important to start with them so they will know there is more out there for you. And it goes back to changing the mindset of the community so our young individuals will know there is more to life. I am worthy of being a doctor, a prime minister, a president, a CEO. I am worthy of starting my own company. And these are the things we need to instill in our kids now, so we will have the community we want. It's all about legacy building. So we have to be able to stand in the gap and start with our children. And it doesn't have to just be my children. It could my nieces, my nephews, and just my neighbors' kids. It takes a village. So it takes that village to show this is what we need to do for our children, and make sure they have that we're leading a life that they can follow.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that point. Welcome back, Mr. Cooper. I know you're traveling, so I know you may be experiencing some technical issues. So we understand that. But I want to thank you, Ms. Roll, for talking about the fact that we need to look at ourselves first or examine ourselves as we try to reach out to young individuals within our community, and provide an example for them to follow. And so we first have to look inside ourselves, as you would have mentioned, if we want to build our community and when we want to reach out to the young persons, as you would have mentioned, because essentially they're looking up to those older persons around them to kind of show them the way. And then you also talk about building that type of legacy for the young persons under your guidance. So I want to thank you for that, and also sharing that in itself kind of leads to community building as well, when you are able to steer and guide those persons that are within your control. So I want to thank you for sharing those points. And then also I want to talk to you about, as you look at the community, and I know you're a native of the Bahamas, but currently you're not living here. But as you look at the community, you survey the community, what is your hope? What is your hope for the community? And how can we come together? How do you think we can come together to making those hopes a reality?
Right. Well, my hope in all of this is, to be present, even though I am not in the Bahamas at the moment. I'm hoping to be, present where I can and apply what I have learned through studies and practices and experience. I will make it an effort to apply what I have learned actively, teaching and training others around me through my experiences on how to create success for themselves, how to build a better community, how to be present for themselves as well, because this is so much bigger than me as an individual. So why hoard all of the knowledge and the blessings that I was able to gain? I want to be able to, I'm hoping I'll be able to teach and impact others where I'm at and in the Bahamas, and one day that they will be able to do the same and allow others to gain that knowledge and become a better person. Like I say, it's all about building a legacy and leaving that behind.
Thank you, Ms. Roll. That's an excellent point. Welcome back, Mr. Cooper. I know you may be experiencing some issues, so I'm going to come back to you. But I wanted to jump on your point, Ms. Roll, that you would have talked about. But firstly, I was looking at the comments. I just want to mention Esther. She's saying, I think she's saying, good evening to my niece. So thank you for joining us today, Esther. I think you're mentioning Miss Roll. But I'm going to come to you, Mr. Cooper, but I want to get back to you, Miss Roll, about what you would have mentioned. And you talked about you're not here, right? But you are a native of the Bahamas. And I think that's so important to mention the fact that, you may not be here in the country, but you want to give back. You want to give back to your community. You want to continue community building. And so whatever skills or whatever resources that you have, you do want to, give that back to your community. So I just wanted to mention that because there are so many other Bahamians who are not here physically, but they are willing and they do want to give back to the community. And so I just wanted to highlight that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Ms. Rowe, before I go to Mr. Cooper.
No, you can go.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. Cooper, thank you for getting back in. I know that you're not, you're traveling, but I wanted to ask you about why it's so important to build the community, reach out to young persons within our community in building our community and engaging in our communities.
Yeah, it's very important because if you look right now at the state of our country, it's a state of emergency. It's something you want to act on. It's more like prevention is better than cure. We wait until youth rebel to say, okay, what can we do to stop crime? What we have to do is prevent it. And I feel like communicating with the youths while they're young would be a good way to prevent, crimes and stuff from happening, showing them a way out, showing them love and compassion, and mostly that, people out here do care. You don't have to be family, but generally just care about their community, their country, and taking it to another level. And that's what I think a lot of guys need. Especially young men and women, but especially young men, they tend to feel like, hey, there's no help. And I feel like each adult should try to, take responsibility, because this is our country. They may not be our children, but this is our country, and our children have to live in it. So why not get involved? If just motivating or just whatever, just contribute to your country and any positive way you can. So that's my 5 cents.
That's an excellent point, Mr. Cooper, because I think sometimes people think, That's not my family. That doesn't have anything to do with me. Why should I take my time and bother, you know? So what do you what do you have to say about people like that who feel as though, you know, that has nothing to do with me. Why should I get involved?
Trust me, it has something to do with you. It could trickle down. You know, you may say, okay, you know, that I don't want to talk or conversate with my neighbor, children, or so forth. That could be the person rebel and come and rob you. Or even your children, you know, because hurt people. So you want to prevent those kind of stuff from happening. I feel like everything what happens in the Bahamas, you know, involves me. This is my country. You know, we may not be in the same house, but we're in the same country. So it will trickle down to you in some way. You know, so for adults to feel or, you know, be selfish and feel like, hey, that don't have nothing to do with me. You know, it really does. You know, it trickles down because, like I say, you know, our children have to live together. So the more we get involved and try to groom these kids to grow up to respectable, loving adults, you know, will trickle down to our kids as well, you know, because, you know, they living in a society with our kids and stuff and us, you know, so.
And may
Thank
I
you.
add to
Uh-huh.
that, like
Yes,
as they
sure.
say, today for me, tomorrow for you. So you never know when you will be in that scenario as to needing help or having a issue where your child is in need of something, or your mom, your siblings are in need of something due to a traumatic event or due to homelessness. So it it is very important that we as a society, as one nation, come together and be willing to look out for one another and not just be so eager to taking care of yourself, you know, like a doggy dog world. Because at the end of the day, what I can probably provide to you, you can, you know, you can be able to provide something else to me. And not saying, oh, I help you, you help me. But for example, you might have water one day and I don't, but I'm able to, you know, provide, you're able to provide that to me because I am thirsty. And one day a family member of yours could come around and I'm I'm able to help them with something they need. Just looking at, you know, when the woman that only had a little bit of oil for her and her son was able to help the prophet, and he was able to bless the home, and she had more than she could even encounter, you know. It, you don't know where your blessings are coming from, you know, you don't know what angel you're helping. So it is so good as a people where, and Bahamians are loving people. They, to be honest, I feel like we are very caring, but it's just some things now where society has caused the mindset to change and our behaviors and, you know, just walks of life that caused a lot of us to detour from who we really are. And I feel like if we just can get back to that place where we was, and like I say before, things will not be the same, but certain things we can get back to where we were in being that caring community, caring person. And there's so much right now that can be changed, but we just need to know how to change it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand where you're coming from, Miss Rule, because when I hear stories of my grandparents and growing up and how they lived as a community and how far we've kind of come from that, it's definitely it's definitely interesting to think about, you know, how much we've evolved. as a community, and has it been in a good way? And then, Mr. Cooper, you talk about, prevention, and, we're quick to react when we see things happening, but we're not in place to kind of prevent these things, and reaching out to young, and you speak about young men, reaching out to young men in our community, and not necessarily taking the approach with taking a different approach, and showing love, and just showing them that someone cares. And so I want to thank you for sharing that. And if any one of you would like to add before we go to our next point, feel free to do so. Yes. Would any of you like to add?
I think that's, you cover it.
Okay, so we move on. We move on to our next point. So I want us to talk, as we survey, our community, and we see the things that are happening. We see these things happening around us. We see the news, and we see different things that are going on in our country. And so I wanted us to talk about safe houses and shelters for vulnerable groups, based on what we've seen happening in our community. What is your view on provision made for safe houses and shelters that are made available for vulnerable groups? Ms. Rolla, I'll start with you, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Cooper.
Okay, this is right up my alley. Hence the name safe houses. I think, just the way things are happening now, home, especially with so much domestic violence, and we're seeing it now. And I feel like, as for being able to have safe housing and in place, and providing the programs within the safe housing, so we can empower our survivors and to begin helping them to rebuild their lives, and help them prepare for permanent housing. And permanent housing will, because it doesn't just stop at safe housing. Safe housing only is for temporary. They will need to, and I know the Bahamas probably doesn't have it either. So from safe housing, they will need to go into a transitional housing, whereas where they will need to also be able to continue to get the services and the counseling that they
That's important. I don't want you to glaze over that, Ms. Roll. That's a very important point that you made. You talk about transitional housing, and I know you have a background in social work. And so as it pertains to transitional housing, can you just touch a little bit on it? I don't want you to glaze over that. That is so very important, Ms. Roll.
Okay, so transitional housing is where you will be able, once you're done with, because sometimes safe housing can last from 3 to 6 months. It just all depends on the issue, or what's happening with the individual. And transitional housing, it's more for, you'll see it more for those with mental health or drug addiction, substance abuse. But what it is homes or apartments for, for the individuals and their children who want to continue to excel in life, who do not want to go back to the community where they were, where they know they will fall prey again, or become go back to using the same substance or alcohol, or putting their children in danger. So what transitional housing is, it helps you to, programs will be in place where you will be able to, the director or the caseworkers will help you find a job, help you, get back on your feet, as to putting wherever it is located, putting your children into school. Even if you want to go back to school, counseling services will be put in place, along with, and with transitional housing, there is something where you will have to pay, um, say a fee, say $100 probably a month. It just depends on the location, the island it's on, how much money. It all goes by how much money you make. It also teaches you how to money manage, how to because out of if you're working out of your check, you'll be saving, say, 10% from your check, whereas when you graduate from transitional housing and look to get your own place and don't have to use the programs anymore, you have that money set aside to say, okay, I've been saving 10% every paycheck, so now I'm able to get on my feet, buy furniture. It just all depends how much you make, but and like I said, with it helps with you bettering your life, but you will still be monitored, you will still be protected, you will still have to sign in weekly for the counseling services to help you understand, okay, this is what's going on and these are the issues I need to address for my life in order for me to excel. It's all about empowering women, children, and going back to the safe housing, it is very important to have those and shelters in the Bahamas for individuals who are faced with homelessness, who are faced with being, I don't like to call them victims of domestic violence. I think they're all survivors, even because of what they're going through. We can't imagine, but save the safety needs for of the survivors. There will always be a need for domestic violence programs, addiction programs, that will implement into transitional housing. And there should be at least, I think, in my opinion, 1 to 2 safe housing on every island, along with 1 shelter, and on at least 3 to 4 islands. And sometimes some of the individuals might need to move out of the country. So that is something the government or agency, NGOs, government organizations, and nonprofit organizations should be able to collaborate with other agencies that can provide those services here as well, here in the United States or in Canada or wherever. They can have these individuals who have been battered to leave the country. Like, I feel like things like that should be put in place, and the locations of the safe homes should not be public. You know, the whereabouts should not be known, and this is where social services and law enforcement needs to be trained and follow the code of ethics and privacy of these individuals to keep them protected. And there also there are programs and therapeutic services that will need to be put in place for if children are involved, because we always look at the survivors or the slash victims and think, okay, it's just to them, but these children are being exposed to traumatic experiences as well, and how we need to understand how it's impacting them negatively, because this is how things start to escalate. We downplay that, oh, the kids saw, but they don't really understand. Trust me, these children do understand, they do feel just as we as adults feel. And this is where we will need to bring play therapy into place, counseling, have programs like Big Brother Big Sisters for these children, so they will know, okay, it is not right to hit on a female. It is not right to do this, or, because they're only, back to what I said earlier, they're only doing or displaying what they see us do. So if they see daddy continue to beat on mom, what do you think he or he's gonna grow up thinking, okay, it's okay because mom never fought back, and the daughter's gonna think it's okay because I saw my mom did it, and 2 days later they are back like they were in love. So it's the example we're setting for our children as well, and we have to be mindful of what they're experiencing, and how are they dealing with that. Because this is a whole big field when it comes to just safe housing and protecting families, and I really think even with the safe housing and the transitional homes, that the Bahamas really need a helpline in place, because some people might not be, being abused, but they need an outlet. And all of these things are so important that we need to be looking into, and not being so sidetracked of the other noise in the market that does not, benefit the community, does not benefit you as a Bahamian citizen. The bickering and all of that it's time to just be done with it and think about what is best and how can we better the Bahamas.
Thank you for those very important points, Ms. Roll. I'll come to you, Mr. Cooper. I just want to highlight that you mentioned some very important points, and the key one that kind of stands out to me is transition, not just in terms of safe housing, but also in moving forward. If you don't want to return back to the environment that maybe was causing you harm, how can you then transition and make your move in terms of moving forward with your life? So transitional housing, as you would have mentioned, is very important. And then you talk about helpline, just having a release, having someone to talk to. There's so many times where I watch television and I see these ads come up for, if you're going through this, there's this helpline. If you're going through that, there's this helpline that you can call, because people are experiencing so many challenges, and maybe you just need a form of communication. Maybe you just need an outlet, someone who can maybe offer you a word of comfort, or maybe some type of guidance in how to address your situation. So these initiatives are key and very important, and I want to thank you for mentioning that. And so I want to come to you, Mr. Cooper. I don't know if you want to add to that, as we would talked about the topic of safe housing and providing safe houses, making provision for safe houses. I know that was a topic in the news recently. Okay, but I wanted to know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I gotta add something, because you know that topic, that's a whole other session, because there's so many grounds to cover. And as Shaquanda mentioned, it's just temporary. When you do safe housing, I mean, you want to grab these individuals and give them a skill. You want to help them out and getting a passport. It's just so many simple things we could do to move on. You don't just want a temporary fix. You don't want to carry your car to the mechanic and he says, okay, I'm gonna pop this in, but you have to see me 3 months later. It's going to cost the country more money, even in that scenario. So we want to fix these people's lives like forever, and have them, hey, reaching out to people like, hey, this is how I got straight. This is the program I took, and now, look at me, I'm an example. I'm calling you right now from Canada, and I'm in the snow and I'm enjoying a whole new life, and it's nothing like hope. A lot of people lost their hope, their fire, their imagination, to feel like, hey, I could be anybody in the world, because you could get so caught up with depression and so many events happening, to downplay you. You could get caught up like, man, listen, ain't no more hope. That's it. I just give up. I throw in the towel. And you could reach into another stage of your life where the light start to shine. And with all you've been through, you have so much experience to know, hey, listen, that place, I don't want to go anymore. I love it here. It's peaceful. So it's definitely a topic that, really needs to be looked over thoroughly. And it takes a lot, it takes a lot, but that's my 5 cents on that.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for mentioning your 5 cents. And I also wanna talk about the fact that you talked about skills. That is so important. You talk about developing those skills in that environment. You not only want to move on with your life, but what can you take away from that experience, even in being in some type of transition? Are you going to develop a skill or trade or something that you can use to help kind of advance, your life and moving forward? And so that's very super important. And I want to thank you for mentioning that. And also want to go back over Mrs. Roll's point, safe housing, transitional housing, and offering helplines for persons. These are initiatives that we need to think about. And as Mr. Cooper talked about, it's a topic that needs further investigation. Okay, so I want to thank you for mentioning that. And so I want us to move on to our next point. If there's anything else you would like to add. Okay, so that'll take us to our next point. Efforts. So what are the as you think about what's going on in our community? Are you satisfied with the effort being put forth by our community leaders as it pertains to our community initiatives? Sorry.
This who's on? Can I go?
Sure.
Of course, I'm very disappointed in the community leaders. I mean, this is why I had to step forward and try to build my own alliance, because you can't wait for the government to get it right or the people in the community to get it right. We now have to take responsibility. We are in the community every day, not the MPs. We see them around election time, to and fro, but we are in the community every day. I don't understand, we just like how they have PTA meetings in the school, why we don't have community meetings like every month? I shouldn't be on the block where I don't know my neighbors. You understand? I shouldn't be on the block where, hey, I gotta look at this kid because I don't even know his name, and he looks strange, but he lives right down the street. I don't even know his parents, So I think it's time for us to step up as ordinary individuals and take over. We shouldn't wait for the government. We are more powerful than the government. We just have to unify, communicate with each other, and make it happen, because we can't wait on the government or any other entity to come and save our lives. These are our children's life at stake. So you don't want to put that in the hands of the government. I definitely don't want to do that. Their help is good, but I wanted to give a shot for myself, because these are my kids. This is my community, and these my people, and that's how I feel about it.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Ms. Roll, would you like to add?
Yes, it is so. That is so true, that we are more powerful than the government. But do we know that? And when will we realize that we are the ones that have the government where they are, and not just waiting for them to say, okay, you can have this. And that's why I said the last time we were on that my passion is to always help where I can. if you're in the Bahamas or if you're in a Bahamian in the States. I'm always willing to help where I can. And we cannot wait on the government to say, okay, you can do this. No, because I put you where you are. How about you do this for me? And make the Bahamas a better Bahamas, and not just thinking about, oh, it's all about money. And like I said, with my company, God gave me the vision, and I know He'll make provision for me. So I do not depend on the government, the US government, the Bahamas government. No. What I have to do, I will do where I can, when I can. And I've reached out to several NGOs, government agencies in the Bahamas, but there was not much response. I am very disappointed in the leaders. Um, and it's a shame that we can only see you around election time or hear from you when you want that vote. Like, why? If we put you there, we put our trust and our faith in you to make a difference. Make that difference. Don't wait until you're in power and then, oh, your phone number changed, or you're not answering the calls, but you were blowing me up when you wanted that vote and the vote of my family members in my house. So what are you doing to make a better Bahamas, and not just taking pictures to be in the limelight, because that's what I've been seeing. But like I said, I've reached out to a few government officials, and to some is, oh, we don't have the funding. I'm not asking you for funding. I'm asking or providing information to you about my company, what we have to offer. The money will always come. I want to be able to make a difference. And it will be with or without you. I plan to introduce and implement programs and services where I am able to. I'm offering where I offer to community, to schools, to educate students and communities on certain awareness. Domestic violence being one. I mean, and there has always been a case of domestic violence in the Bahamas. It's just in the light now because we have these little gadgets that's posting everything to social media, or it's being talked about, and I like that. And I'm a huge advocate against domestic violence and gender gentrification. So I want to be able to educate, empower, motivate, transform lives for better. And I can't depend on the leaders to help me do that if they're not doing it. So I plan to do it on my own. That's my effort. When I do it, I'll be happy for the help. There are so many, and I've said this before, there are so many talented individuals in the Bahamas that is ready to put the boots on the ground and make a difference. So it's time for us to stand as a community to do it for ourselves. And eventually government will come along, but we'll get it done on our own if we have to. And that's what a community does.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. You wanted to add something, Mr. Cooper? I see you look like you wanted to add something.
But let me tell you, some of these topics is really need to go into overtime. I don't I don't want to put too much emphasis in it because it's a long story, but definitely, we have to make it happen. Anybody who listening out there, listen, we have to make it happen. But it's so ironic, so many elders, David, this PLP, F&M, then this party, when they, it's like they're getting so waked up, like, what is the government doing for you that you cannot do for yourself? You know what I mean? Like, it just brings forward division, and there's so many grounds. And like Shaquanda said, every time you reach out, it's like you looking for money. Listen, I could bring you in money if you take the time to listen to what I have to say. And there's crime. It's just so many things you could do. It's not always paid. I need funding. It's I could bring funding, just say it, but it's just a long topic and that could run us into overtime, but I ain't get too much into it.
No problem, no problem. We want to continue these talks because this is very important. And so many persons in our community are being impacted by these different issues. So we have to talk about it. So you mentioned, Mr. Cooper, you talk about community meetings, monthly community meetings to inform the public of what's going on, and then, not waiting around. Both of you mentioned not sitting and waiting around on the government to, get things going. You can start that process without them. So I want us to, as we, wind down and come to the end of our session, I want to find out if you have any additional comments you would like to make before we close. I'll come to you, Mr. Roll, and then come to you, Mr. Cooper.
Just to go back to the previous question, to make it clear, I'm not saying we do not need the government, because we do. And like I said earlier, we will always need someone, and we will need the government agencies, to be a part, because you live in the community as well. When you leave your job, you're going home. So we will need law enforcement involved. We will need social services. We will need urban renewal. We will need every government agency to play a part to make our community a better community. Let's work on the Bahamas to be a better Bahamas, and not just sit back and watch. Don't be the problem all the time. Don't continue to complain. Be a part of the solution to make the change. You cannot have change without changing yourself first and putting that change into play. And with me saying we need the government agencies, I do feel like a lot of agencies that we do have home, they need that proper training, which I've been seeing a lot of complaints about, just the service in general. They need training from the top to the bottom. And it all starts with educating yourself and manners and respect. Let's go back to that, and bringing that out in the agencies, in the community.
Don't glaze over that, Ms. Roll, because that's very important, because you're dealing with vulnerable groups. Right. So you need to have training when you're dealing with these people who are dealing with different issues and facing different challenges. Right. How can someone come in who's hurting and who's going through different challenges, and you approach them in the wrong way, right, or your tone is off, right, or your behavior is off? So you need to have training as it pertains to dealing with these persons. So don't glaze over that. That's very important.
And that's why we have a lot of individuals out there that just suffer in silence because of the attitude, because of the approach. And it's so important, because you don't know. For me, I love being a social worker, and I still get messages from clients that I had in Georgia and Florida, and I've been out of Florida for years and Georgia for about 2 years now, and I still get messages from clients just on how they're progressing, or messaging saying, "Oh, don't be mad, but I fall back, and I just want your input on this." It's the way you treat people. And I always tell my clients, don't think when you come to me, I'm judging you, because I could be in the same shoe you're in. It's just the choices I've made and the way I react to certain circumstances that comes my way. So don't think I'm judging you. And that's why we have people who are suffering in silence, because they are judged, because they are not treated fairly. And I come in for services, and then everyone in your family or who I know knows that I've been in for services or this is going on in my home. And, everything is breaching that code of ethics. And that's why I said I feel like every government agency, especially those who are dealing with people, need to be trained on a quarterly basis.
Definitely, I wholeheartedly agree with that. They need to be trained on a human level. You have human to human interaction. If you have someone coming to you, I don't want to come to you and you looking down on me. You think you're better than me. That's a problem. So training is definitely needed, especially when you're working within these ministries and in these industries where you're dealing with people, you're dealing with humans, you're dealing with these very sensitive issues, and you're going to people who are miserable, angry, and who do not have the training to deal with these issues. And this is a major problem. And that's why, like you said, persons choose to suffer in silence, because when they're looking for help, they have to go through someone who does not have the training to deal with them. That's a major issue. Okay. Mr. Cooper, I want to come to you if you want to add to that.
Yes, definitely, we need a lot of training in the Bahamas. And, the government, I know the Treasury needs some money and so forth, but, the government really needs to take the time back. I know they are busy with the tourism and stuff, but could you focus on the people? Could you focus on the quality of the people communicating? I mean, you have so many people in the Bahamas just simple down to communicating, especially when feelings are involved. I feel like that's why so many young men resort to violence. They don't know how to communicate and say, hey, bro, I offended you. I'm really sorry, I acted out of anger or how I felt right there and then, and, let's try to just squash this and move on. Let's agree to disagree. We have our differences, but let's try make it right. You know what I mean? Because sometimes just one person disagreement ends up like a domino effect from this person getting shot, then that person getting shot. Then there's a whole 5-6 year war over just, a fire spark. But definitely we need training in the Bahamas. I feel like the government places so much emphasis on profit. Once you train the people, you better the quality of the Bahamas. It's nothing like, saying, if we was up to par and people would be like, hey, let's send for some Bahamians. Like, like how everyone, when you talk about doctor, you hear Cubans, let's send for some Bahamians. They have good work ethics. They good people. You really don't hear that much about Bahamians, even though we're a small country in numbers, but I'm just saying, we want to have our people skilled, and spend time and training the quality of our people and make the quality of the Bahamas better. I mean, the Bahamas is a beautiful place. It's just the people and the mindset in there just need a bit of work, you know. That's about it for me.
Can I
Thank
add
you.
to what he
Yes, go
said?
ahead. Yeah, sure.
Like he said with doctors are coming from Cuba. Like when we hear about doctors, we hear, Cubans or I can remember hearing Dr. Miles Monroe said when he went to speak, I think this was I can't remember if it was in the US or Africa, where they introduced him as a US, someone from the US. And he got up and was proud to say, no, I am from the Bahamas, from, Nassau, Bahamas. And I think it's Bain Street he was from or something like that. And,
Yeah.
and he explained how he was raised, like, no, you're not gonna put the US on me. This is a product of the Bahamas. And, we with him, with Mr. Cooper saying, having doctors, when we hear about doctors, we have to get doctors from Cuba. And it goes back to when I spoke of in our last meeting the Bahamas is so rich, but the resources are abroad. Because I consider myself top-notch social work. And I feel like we have so much educated individuals that's abroad that can come home and make the Bahamas, the
And
Bahamas
these
feel
are
like
educated behemoths.
yeah,
You say individuals, educated behemoths.
educated behemoths. Yes, you know, the Bahamas feel like try to be neck and neck with the U.S. You know, we could always come home and make the Bahamas better than the US, you know? Like why when we speak of doctors, oh, that is a Bahamian doctor, like Dr. Miles Monroe said. No, I am a speaker from the Bahamas. So why can't say, oh, that attorney is from the Bahamas? You know, let us speak. Like, you know, we are so proud of where we're from, but show it as well. When we speak of our officers, police officers, let us know they're the best police officers in the Caribbean, not just the Bahamas. You know, we need to start uplifting our people, and they need to show, like going back to the agencies, they need to show that they're the best. When foreigners come to get services, they need to know, oh, the best service I got was when I was in the Bahamas from this social worker. Not just because of tourism, you know, let them be proud to go back to their country and compare. So when I hear about doctors and nurses, I want to hear, oh, we're sending our nurses with Good Samaritan or to Cuba, you know, stuff like that, to Jamaica, because Jamaica, of course, the university has the best, they produce the best doctors. So let us speak of our people just like how we speak of the Cubans that's coming to the Bahamas to be doctors, or from Guyana or India, you know? So just wanted to add that to Mr. Cooper.
Yes, thank you for adding that. Those are very, very good points. And I just want to mention those persons who are joining us today. Thank you, Ms. Stewart, for joining us. Thank you, Ms. Sayers. So good to have you watching. Thank you, Ms. McIntosh. Thank you for joining us today and adding your points. And for those who are watching and who, you know, you haven't added your points, but we want to thank you. Remember to like and share, share our content if you enjoy our content today. But I want to thank you for mentioning those very, very important points. And you mentioned, Ms. Roll, and that's a topic for another day. Listen, we have the resources. You talk about the resources, our human resources, our human capital. We have the best, we have the brightest minds. But where are they? Why are they leaving? And why aren't they returning? And so those are very, very important points.
Right.
I see your mouth moving.
And to add, when I say I'm the best social worker, I'm not just a social worker, I'm a mentor, a speaker, an educator, a life coach. You know, the list goes on. But where am I? You know?
You have some strong backgrounds. You have some strong backgrounds in different areas. And we need those resources. We need it. You know, but our young people, you know, our young persons, what is going to attract you to want to stay? Even, you know, myself, it's so many different challenges you have to overcome just to accomplish certain things. Like, why would you want to stay? And we have the talent, we have the intelligence, we have the persons who are capable of doing some great things. But, you know, here it is, it's the big red tape, the giant invisible red tape. So, Mr. Cooper, would you like to add anything before we close off this session?
I think that's it. That should be it.
Mr. Cooper said he's not a man of many words. Before we close, Ms. Rowe, would you like to add anything?
No.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of those persons who would have joined us in our session today. Again, we just want to mention how so very important this topic is: community engagement, civic engagement. As we survey our environment, we see what's going on, we see the news, we see what is happening to persons in our community, people who have lost hope, people who have, you know, given up. We see these things happening. So how are we engaging our community? how are we putting in efforts to serve our community? We talk about persons complaining about ministries, these groups, they have to reach out to ministries, they have to reach out to certain industries, and persons do not have the necessary training to deal with these persons. How are we going to rectify these issues that are impacting us? And so there's so many things that we need to further dive into. So with that, we are going to close off the session. I want to thank those for listening in. Are there any pages you two would like to share?
Yeah, I'll share my pages when we close out.
You can share it now. Go ahead, because we're gonna close out. You can share it now.
No, it's a long story, but I got to come off and
Okay.
go from my phone.
Okay, no problem. That's okay. That's okay. We'll share it under the video. That's okay. So with that,
Well,
we've come to
I have
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
pages on Facebook and Instagram at Royalty CNS. You can find me and what I do here. So I'm
Ms. Roy, you being super humble. You're involved with notary and all these efforts you're involved with.
yes, I do a lot. Notary, apostilles, I-9s. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And along with my coaching, I work with relationship coach, transformational coach, more with those who are transitioning, changing, bettering their lives, going through a divorce, or just having relationship issues. I mentor. Kids are. I try to do through storytelling, not much of a, get it right the way I was raised, but it's a lot I add to my hat. Every day is something I'm learning that I'm adding to my hat, and so there's no rest for the weary. Trying to.
No rest for the weary.
Yes,
Hey,
like I say,
amen.
it's a legacy I'm trying to build. I'm trying to
Mr.
leave
Cooper.
behind, and generational wealth. That's what it's all about at this point. I have kids, I have nieces and nephews.
Amen, Miss Rule. No rest for the weary. We come to you, Mr. Cooper.
Yes, then you said share my page. I thought you meant like a link or something. That's why I was like after the show. But you can hit me up. Anyone can hit me up on Facebook, No Limit Auto Care, and they can check out some of my stuff.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Cooper and Miss Roll. Thank you for those persons listening to our talk. I would like to thank our viewers. Comment under our videos. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you want us to talk about. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Can We Talk? Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, using the addresses provided on our page. And so with that, we've come to the end of our session. Let's think, talk, and do. Thank you so much. Have a great day.